some football I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
And overtime.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Louie T Live. Sunday night football overtime. Ravens, Steelers, AFC North family business of the highest importance. And this was a dominant performance by the Baltimore Ravens. Other than a late flurry in the first half by the Pittsburgh Steelers, this was total, pure domination on the part of the Baltimore Ravens. And I talked about how I thought the Ravens and the Bengals were going to be really good football teams, and I thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers would be right there accompanying them in the race for AFC North supremacy. But after watching the Steelers over the first quarter of the season, and we know things can change very rapidly in this league, and the Steelers are one of those teams that can get hot, run off 5 out of 6, run off 7 out of 8, and all of a sudden we're singing a different tune. But I sat in this chair just a week ago when we watched the Patriots come out with a very flat effort. We watched the Patriots get steamrolled by the Detroit Lions. I listened to some of you talk recklessly out the side of your neck talking about the Patriots dynasty is done, and I sat here and I told you I would have none of it. Look what the Patriots did today. I expected that. I can't speak for you guys because you guys were acting ridiculous last week, but I told you what was going to happen this week with the Patriots. Fast forward to Sunday night in week 4, and here we are sitting having a similar conversation about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I'm not going to defend the Steelers like I did the Patriots because I know what I'm getting out of the Patriots. I do not, repeat, do not know what I am getting out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are years, if you go in Mike Tomlin's Rolodex of his career as Steelers head coach, there are years in there where you get these types of performances and you get that kind of a season where it's 8-8, it's 9-7. I don't think he's ever had a losing record in Pittsburgh, but 8-8, and this could be one of those 8-7-1 type seasons for the Steelers this year. It could be one of those years. It's not looking good for the Steelers, and the thing that I think bothers me the most is the lack of balance. They don't have any even in the game that they won last week against Tampa, there was no balance. There isn't a sense of, hey, if they need to, they can run the football. They don't have the type of balance that will allow Ben Roethlisberger to take a night off or at least not be the star attraction, the main event, and not have to throw it 50 some odd times. It seems like every single week Ben has to throw it 50 plus times for them to even have a remote chance of winning. And if the offense is on, the defense isn't. Tonight, the defense was good enough in spots. The offense was just brutal. It was awful. Credit the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of which, the Ravens are the story here. Let's not make this about the team that lost tonight in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who dropped to 1-1-2. Let's make it about the team that's 3-1 and made a statement tonight. I talked about this division being arguably the best in football, and I've been bullish on the AFC North, and I said all along I thought this would be the best football division in football. Some of you had disagreed with me vehemently and talked about the NFC South. I look at the South, I see an AFC North team take out an NFC South team, and I say, look, it's not coincidence that the Cincinnati Bengals, who I told you I think was going to be really good this year, have a chance to win the division, went to Atlanta and won. I look at this Ravens team, I said, look, this is going to be a Ravens type of season. Why? Because Flacco has weapons. Why? Because Flacco has an offensive line that can protect him. Why? Because the Ravens won't have to try to win games 17-13. They can actually score points this season. Why? Because Flacco can literally turn around, hand the football off, set up play action, and take shots down the field. What did he do in this football game? Take shots down the field to Sheriff John Brown, a.k.a. Smoke. And did he ever smoke that Pittsburgh Steelers secondary? 3 catches, $116, and a touch for John Brown in this game to help the Ravens jump out on top 14-0. And if not for a fumble by Alex Collins, in the second quarter, if not for a missed Joe Flacco touchdown potential hookup with Krabs in the second quarter. This game is a blowout. This is not even a competitive football game. There were so many opportunities for the Ravens to put their foot on the throats of the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, and they just failed to take full advantage of those opportunities. Had they been mistake-free in this game, had they taken advantage of all the opportunities that were afforded to them, like I just mentioned, the Alex Collins fumble, if he gets into the end zone or if he just doesn't fumble there and the next play they get an opportunity to potentially get in the end zone, we're talking about a totally different ball game. If Joe Flacco hits Crabtree after the double move he put on the cornerback and is wide ass open and he's able to gallop into the end zone, this is a totally different ball game, and we're not talking about 26-14. We're talking about 34-14. We're talking about an ass thrashing in the house of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Ravens dominated this game. The score doesn't do it any justice. Outside of about a good 7-minute stretch in the second quarter to wrap up the first half, this was total and utter domination by the Baltimore Ravens. The defense suffocated the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. The Steelers made no attempt to run really in this game, and for good reason. They weren't going to be able to run against this Ravens stout front. They tried to throw it, and the Ravens would have none of it. And it was one of those nights where you just looked up and you said, wow, maybe the Steelers are starting to show that they, one, miss Le'Veon Bell, but two, this defense just isn't good. It just isn't good. And I've said this a number of times about this Steelers defense, and I hate to bring up something that they have no control over, but they're not the same defense without Ryan Shazier. And there's nothing you can do about that. You know, he's been gone, and the minute he got hurt last year was the minute I said, I don't think they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. And they weren't even good enough to win in the AFC divisional round of the playoffs, getting bounced at home by Jacksonville. They just weren't the same team after Shazier, and they're still not the same team without Ryan Shazier. It's a shame because, again, you hate to put it all on one man and say one man makes that big of a difference, but one man makes that big of a difference for that Steelers defense. They're just not the same. And it's so bad now that they couldn't trust their secondary to stick with those Raven receivers. They were rushing 3 primarily in this game. 3, 4 at max. You're not going, and you don't have an elite pass rusher. And rushing 3, you're not going to hit home. And the Ravens, they just ate it up. And why can the Ravens eat that up this year? Unlike past seasons, they've actually got weapons. They're not throwing the football to Bashad Perryman anymore. That shit is dead. It's over. Max Williams looks like a different tight end this year. Totally different guy. It's amazing the difference that happens and takes place when other talented football players step onto the football field. It takes so much pressure off of you as a first-round pick to have to go out and make plays. All of a sudden, you can just go out and play your game. Boyle looks like a viable threat out there. I've already told you that Mark Andrews was going to make an indelible impact on this Ravens roster. We've seen what Crabtree, John Brown, and Willie Snead have done for this offense. We know Buck Allen and Alex Collins can run the football and keep them balanced. And then you look at this defense. Marlon Humphreys is turning into a shutdown corner right before our very eyes. Marlon Humphreys is the real deal. It's about time one of these damn Alabama corners come out and lights it up. Drake Kirkpatrick is starting to really look good in Cincinnati, but he doesn't look this good. He doesn't look Marlon Humphreys good. Marlon Humphreys is the real deal. And if they can ever get Jimmy Smith to get his head screwed on straight off the field and stay healthy on the field, they could have themselves one hell of a tandem. And I love Tavon Young in the slot. And Brandon Carr played his ass off tonight. So they could possibly go, when Jimmy Smith gets back, they could possibly go 4 deep at the cornerback position of really talented guys. The safety position with Weddle and Jefferson, it's nice. It's just a really good mix there of veteran leadership, athleticism, and veteran grit. Toughness. Tony Jefferson leads the league in the last 5 years at the safety position in tackles for loss. That's what he brings to the table. Not to mention a guy that's not that bad in space as a coverage safety. Not the best, but he's not the worst. And then you look at the linebacker position with Owasso and Mosley and all of these different guys. They love the UCLA linebacker that they drafted this year and what he's been able to do for them. This is a scary Ravens team, and they're still missing a legit pass rusher. Just imagine late stages of that game, waning moments. Did you see what happened? That got me excited. Probably more so than anything else I saw tonight. The Alabama product that I've been waiting on, screaming, why is this guy not better and getting more reps and more snaps and more opportunities? Getting a sack late in the ball game. If they can ever get anything out of him, look out. They could get a real legit, havoc-wreaking, fear-inducing pass rusher to go opposite of Terrell Suggs, because we know Terrell Suggs is 967 years old. If they can ever get somebody on the opposite side, Tim Williams could be that guy. I'm begging. Give him a chance. Got a nice sack late in this game. If they could ever get that missing piece, boy, look out for the Baltimore Ravens. This was a dominant performance. But I've said this a number of times. I've said this numerous times. Of all the divisions in football, this one here is probably the most disrespectful when it comes to home field advantage. The other teams in the division could give two shits about your home field. They could care less. I've seen the Ravens go into Pittsburgh and win. I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers go into Baltimore and win. I've seen Cincinnati go into Pittsburgh and win. I've seen Pittsburgh, they go into Cincinnati every year and win. The disrespect for home field advantage in this division is nauseating. It's nauseating. So it didn't shock me tonight to see what the Ravens did. It just didn't. Especially after seeing, I thought the Steelers may have turned the corner, may have given themselves a spark after the win on Monday night. Nope, I was wrong. I just don't know if they're a good football team this year. It's crazy to say that, but after 1-2-2, or after 1-1-2, to start the season off after 4 weeks, after watching this defense be shredded in certain games and the offense be lifeless in others, the lack of consistency with this Steelers team is frightening right now. It's frightening. And when you look up at the rest of the division, hell, the Browns are no pushover. And despite them having the same exact record as the Steelers right now, they could easily be 3-1. They could have beat the Steelers in week 1. They could have beat the Saints in week 2. They could have won the game today. They could be 4-0 while I'm sitting here thinking about it. They could easily be 4-0. Should have beat the Raiders today. I watched that entire game. Should have won that game. Blew it. They don't know how to win. They're not a pushover. So it's not a foregone conclusion that the Steelers are going to get healthy off of the likes of the Bengals this year like they did last year. They swept the Bengals, I believe, both games. I believe they swept I think they swept the whole division last year. If I'm not mistaken. They went 6-0 in the division, if I'm not mistaken, because they swept the Ravens last year. I know they beat the Browns both times. Obviously, they didn't win a game last year. And I believe they beat Cincinnati twice, too. So that's obviously not happening this year. Ravens come into Pittsburgh and get the win. And they barely got Cleveland the first time. Cincinnati, they had the Steelers on the ropes last year in Cincinnati. Steelers are in trouble. And honestly speaking, the lack of balance on offense, the lack of pass rush on defense, the lack of any corner being able to stay with any receiver with any kind of speed, it's a very scary situation for the Steelers right now. They're in trouble. And Le'Veon Bell is laughing all the while. Because if Le'Veon Bell plays in these 4 games, no worse are the Steelers than 2-2 right now. No worse. Probably more along the lines of 3-1. Probably along the lines of 3-1. He makes that big of a difference. That big. It's so different when Ben dumps it off to Le'Veon Bell out in the flats on a simple swing route, and he's able to stutter, juke, and then accelerate and pick up 8 versus trying to dump it down to James Conner and getting 1 or 2. Totally different animal out of the backfield. When have we seen with Le'Veon Bell in the backfield, when have we seen the Steelers leading rusher having 9 carries for 19 yards? There were games where Le'Veon Bell would have 35 carries and 47 touches on the day. James Conner is fine. He's no Le'Veon Bell. And I've said this 1,000 times. The Steelers are good without Le'Veon Bell. They're not a Super Bowl contender without him, though. I don't even know if that first statement rings true anymore. They're in trouble because Le'Veon Bell not only improves the offense if he were on this team, he improves the defense. How? Because he's going to help them keep time of possession. They're going to possess the football better. They're going to control pace of game better. How many times did we see Steelers go 3 and out tonight with 3 straight passes? How many times did that happen in the second half? Where they get the football, throw it on first down, throw it on second down, throw it on third down, punt. Not happening with Le'Veon Bell in the lineup. But I'm not going to sit here and make this about Le'Veon Bell. He's not here and he's not coming back. You heard the reports before the games took place today. Steelers are open to taking a second-round pick and a good player in exchange for Le'Veon Bell. That's on the table right now. Problem is, are you going to find a suitor willing to give that up at this juncture of the season and still have to pay Le'Veon Bell the money he's looking for? I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be a really eerie and funny situation there because if he decides to not come back until much later in the season to get an accrued year, which at this point I don't even know if the Steelers would allow him because they've already taken the franchise tag off the table. So technically the man's not under contract right now. Well, no, they didn't take the franchise tag off because if they did, then it would turn into a Josh Norman situation where he would be a free agent, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to allow this man to walk. So in any event, Ravens and the Bengals look like the class of this division. They look like the class of this division right now as it's constituted. And I told you they were both going to be good this year. I just thought the Steelers would be right there with them. I did not expect this start to the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't expect this kind of play from both the Bengals and the Ravens. And of that group right now, the Ravens may be the one to beat, even though Cincinnati beat Baltimore already. And, you know, I'm a huge Cincinnati Bengals guy. I love Andy Dalton. I've said this a million times. If you protect Andy Dalton, he's dangerous. You saw it again today. Watched that game already as well. You protect Andy Dalton, he is dangerous. I still don't know that if the Ravens have the Bengals in a neutral site or even at home, and we'll get to see those two teams lock horns again later on in the season in Baltimore. I'm not sure if Cincinnati can beat them in Baltimore. I've seen them do it before. But that'll be intriguing. But big wins for both Cincinnati and Baltimore today. And for the Steelers, we've seen them turn the switch on. This doesn't feel like one of those types of seasons. And normally when they turn the switch on, Le'Veon Bell is on that roster. He's not on he's not on this team right now, and he's not coming back. And the way I look at it, with the way both Baltimore and Cincinnati are playing football, I just don't know if the Steelers have it in them to make a run and catch these teams, because I think they're going to be consistently good this year. I told you I thought both the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens had a chance at 11-5 this year. I had Cincinnati having a chance to win the division at 11-5, losing in Week 17 to Pittsburgh, who would win the division. That's going out the window right now. So, and I had Baltimore at 10-6, both making the playoffs. I had 3 teams from this division making the playoffs. Doesn't look like it's going to be a realistic scenario, though, now with the way the Steelers are playing. But we got a lot of football left. And I told you I thought that the Browns would win 8 games this year. Probably not going to win 8. They've pissed away some opportunities early. But they're going to be a really competitive team, and they're going to win some games. Probably a couple in this division when it's all said and done. So, it's pretty fascinating that the way that the AFC North is unfolding right now. But this was so impressive by the Baltimore Ravens, 26-14 over the Steelers, who I'm telling you right now look lifeless and look to be in some serious trouble. Not just on the defensive side of the football, but on the offensive side of the football. The defense actually wasn't that bad tonight, but they gave up some plays early. And the reason the defense wasn't as bad tonight is because as much as we saw them blitz Fitzpatrick on Monday night, they were the polar opposite in this game. They got scared away off the blitz early in this game when John Brown roasted them, and they stopped blitzing the remainder of the game, and they were extra soft, and the Ravens took full advantage. Hey, if you're going to allow us to put the best field goal kicker in NFL history on the field, let me pause. I can't disrespect Adam Vinatieri that way. If you're going to take the best field goal kicker that we've ever seen off the field, and Vinatieri is up there in age right now, still doing it at a relatively high level though, but I don't know if I've ever seen a kicker, and again, Vinatieri has the clutch gene. We've seen him kick game-winning field goals in the Super Bowl, which is something that we cannot say about Justin Tucker, but I feel really confident that if he were put in that situation, he'd bang it home from 55. He'd bang it home from 52 or 49. So this guy's the best kicker I've ever seen. And no disrespect to Adam Vinatieri, but Justin Tucker is you don't expect him to miss. You just don't. You know, and normally they're right down the middle every time. 55 looks like 25, looks like 35, looks like 45. They're all the same. Right down the middle and good. So if you want to put this guy on the field from 49, the Ravens will take it. They'll field goal you to death because you're not scoring any points. They don't feel your offense. Without Le'Veon Bell and this Steelers offense being one-dimensional, nobody fears this offense. They're in trouble. Steelers are in trouble. I'm not putting them to bed yet, but they're in trouble. Let's get to some comments, though. Let's get all the way to the top. Vincent Cole says, is Justin Tucker the best kicker in the league? He's been so legit in carrying my fantasy team. I mean, I know there's Greg the Leg. No, it's Justin Tucker. And then to me, there's a distant gap between, there's a huge distant, big gap between him and the second best kicker in the league. There's a bit of distance there. Like second place is a distant second place. And again, not to disrespect some of the other really good kickers in the league, but that's just how good Justin Tucker is. Terrence Leach says, how impressive has the Ravens defense been in the second half of games? Not just the second half of games, just in general. They've been really impressive this year on defense. But even more so, as you alluded to, in the second half of games. And they did it again tonight. FBG Tony says, what's up with the Steelers? They effing suck. That defense is absolutely horrible, and this offense is not the same without Le'Veon Bell, bro. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I've been saying all night, and you saw it. You saw it. JP says, I was at Applebee's watching the game. The Steelers just could get nothing going. Defense looks awful, and the offense is struggling without Bell, and it sounds like he isn't coming back. Again, facts. FBG Tony says, this Ravens football team, they're solid in every facet of the game. Joe Cool has been balling out of his mind. John Brown and Michael Crabtree, he said Mike Crabtree, have been making a huge difference. All of these guys. And Willie Schneed. All of these guys. And then we make it a lot about the receivers, and rightfully so. They make plays. These tight ends are just... I was cool with Joe getting one receiver, one veteran receiver, and like two tight ends and being straight. Like Joe's always been exceptional when he's got a safety valve at tight end. Well, he's got like 6 now. With the emergence of Max Williams all of a sudden, you've got Boyle playing some solid ball at tight end, and then you've got Mark Andrews, and they still haven't gotten Hayden Hurst back yet. Wait till he comes back, and all of a sudden you've got 4 tight ends. This offense is ridiculous right now. FBG Tony says, no Ryan Shazier, no L. Bell walking through that door. 1, 2, and 1, and the other teams are getting better. This can be the end of a great run. Yeah, it definitely could be. I think I might actually have it wrong up here. Let me look to change. Yeah, I don't want to go with the whole end of the era thing quite yet because we all know that things change quickly in this league, and even if they struggle this year, and if Ben say he decides to come back one more year next year, they could be a good team again next year. You know, they may fix a few things, fine tune a few things, and all of a sudden they're a better football team. But right now, on the outside looking in, yeah, it looks like this Steelers thing is coming to a bitter end. It does. FBG Tony says, Ravens look incredible, bro. Almost a complete team. Sheesh. Brown Shoe T2 says, Bengal versus Ravens rematch looking like it will be for the championship of the North. Pretty much. That will be a deciding matchup. But again, it's early. I don't want to start crowning the Bengals. They're 3-1. They're 1 or 2 injuries away from being a really, really wishy-washy team. You know, and I've got so many things to say about Cincinnati, even though I'm extremely ecstatic about what they're doing right now. Their defense is not good. They've got the worst third down defense in all of football right now. And that's going to cost them when they play against teams that aren't a wet paper bag on defense like the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm still concerned about what I've saw. And I'll talk about that when we get there. I don't want to turn this into a AFC North breakdown as opposed to Ravens and Steelers. JP says, that Steelers defense looks so bad right now. The DBs were getting toasted left and right all game long, and the D-line can't rush the quarterback. RG3 hashtag says, Marlon Humphrey did it again. Yes. Yes, he did. JP says, Antonio Brown was a no-show in this game thanks to Marlon Humphrey, except for that one TD, and Schuster should have caught most of those balls he lost. It was a rough night all the way around for the Steelers. Schuster had a couple of drops. They couldn't get the ball to A.B. like they wanted to. Credit the Ravens defense. They doubled when they needed to. And like I talked about at the top of the show, Marlon Humphrey, and as some of you have already said, Humphrey, he's a difference maker, man. He is truly a difference maker. And it's amazing what happens when you've got one of those guys that can erase some things in the back half, because the Ravens don't get tremendous pressure up front. But when you can trust some of your guys to man up with some of these players and to be smart in coverage and make some plays, it changes things. You know, and like I said, Brandon Carr had himself a stellar night. That knockaway in the end zone from Juju Smith-Schuster that ended up forcing a field goal, that's huge. That's huge. RG3 hashtag says, I think Ravens should start Tim Williams more. I've been asking for Tim Williams to get more reps. He's the one guy that I think on their roster currently, as constituted, that can come in and change the way they get pressure on the quarterback. There isn't another guy on that roster that has the capabilities and the skill set that Tim Williams does. And maybe he's not showing it in practice. I don't know what it is and why they don't feel comfortable putting him on the field more. But I'd like to see more of Tim Williams. JP says, are you ready to put Mike Tomlin on the hot seat yet? Not really, no, I'm not. But you know how the perception is. The locker room's falling apart. Steelers are struggling, yada, yada, yada. So, you know, there's going to be this media conjured up perception that he could get fired. Look, there's a reason that over the last 40 years, 30 some odd years, the Steelers have only had 3 head coaches. They don't do this. They don't have knee-jerk reactions to a season that doesn't go the way that they intended to. there's a reason why they have had the longevity and the staying power that they've had amongst the best in this league, because they don't have a bunch of turnover. They have a lot of continuity. They stay the course, and more organizations could learn from the likes of the Steelers and the Patriots and the Packers and some of these outfits that don't necessarily have the best coach. You know, I don't think that Mike McCarthy is the best coach in the world in Green Bay, but it's the level of continuity and knowing that when I show up at the building every day, the same guy's going to be there. There won't be a whole bunch of waffling or flip-flopping. I don't have to worry about 9 different offensive coordinators like you have in Baltimore. That's how you lose football games. When you're cycling through 18 different offensive coordinators, 9 different head coaches, 8 different DCs, that shit impacts your players. You don't have to worry about that in Pittsburgh. For the most part, they may have a different offensive coordinator here or there. We've seen Todd Haley. We've seen Bruce Arians. They've had a number of different guys, but it's usually in-house, guy that Ben's comfortable with, that's going to call similar plays to what they've called in the past, and not much is going to change. And there's something to be said for that level of continuity and how that impacts your football team. And so that's what I see right now with the Steelers. I don't think that Mike Tomlin is going to get fired, but you never know. We'll see. Larry G's the best says, Juju needs to pick up a damn playbook and stop playing Fortnite. He got shut down by Brandon Carr. Brandon Carr. He knows the playbook. I know you were trying to be funny there. But he knows what's going on. Sometimes you just got to give credit to the other guys. You know, the Ravens went out and took it to the Steelers tonight. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They were the better team tonight. And really, the Steelers haven't been able to say they were the better team in many games this season. That's why they're 1-2-1 on the season. John Perez says, should we expect the Le'Veon Bell trade soon? I asked because I heard a rumor that Bell could be done this week and the Eagles are reportedly interested. Again, if you're willing to step up and give the Steelers what they're asking for, something can get done. I already told you what the asking price reportedly was, according to Adam Schefter. The asking price is a 2 and a really good football player. If you're willing to come up off of those 2 items, maybe just a 1 would get it done, and a serviceable body, or maybe just a 1 in general, then maybe they'll pull the trigger. But right now, the Steelers aren't moving off the spot, and I don't blame them. They hold his rights. He's not going anywhere. And if they want to continue to franchise tag him, he's not going anywhere. So, and being that the running back position isn't one of those positions like quarterback or left tackle or edge rusher where you're going to really get hurt in your pockets if you keep franchise tagging that player. You can franchise the running back all you like. It's not going to really kill you. Eventually, it'll get really high as that percentage continues to increase year after year. But they own his rights. And if they want to continue to hold on to him, I wouldn't move off the spot. A 2 and a really good player is what I would do. So that's all the comments we have for tonight. Steelers dominated thoroughly tonight by the Baltimore Ravens, 26-14, and I don't want to pronounce the Steelers dead because, like I said, they're capable of getting hot, and I know no Le'Veon Bell really speaks volumes as far as the fortunes of this team moving forward, but they're capable of going and winning, 5 out of their next 7 games, and all of a sudden, they're not the same Steelers, but they're not dead yet. I'm not going to pronounce these guys dead yet, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's looking pretty bleak as I sit here after 4 weeks of football watching the Steelers at 1-2-1. They don't look like a team capable of making any kind of power move in this division, and the Ravens look legit. The Bengals look legit, and I think it's going to be a 2-horse race in this division if things continue in the direction that they're going in. We'll see how the remainder of the season goes. We haven't heard the last of the Steelers, I don't think. They'll have some type of impact on this division, whether they're winning it or stopping somebody else from winning it. They're going to have an impact on this division before it's all said and done. They've still got 2 matchups with Cincinnati. They've got 1 more with Baltimore. So you haven't heard the last of the Steelers. They're going to have an impact, even if it's not for them winning the division themselves. So we'll see what happens. But the Ravens, damn impressive on the road in Pittsburgh, 26-14. They ran the football. Flacco threw it confidently. They made plays. The defense was outstanding tonight, except for about a 7-minute stretch in the second quarter. This defense was outstanding. The Ravens generated turnovers. They made the Steelers pay for their mistakes. They took advantage of opportunities. They missed out on a couple. Obviously, the 2 biggest misses in this game for the Ravens, the fumble by Alex Collins down on the goal line, and of course Flacco missing Crabtree wide open for a potential touchdown in the second quarter on a deep ball. But in any event, Ravens looked good tonight in the victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 26-14. That's going to do it for your man Louie T here on Sunday Night Football Overtime. Ravens get the win. I'll have lockdown coverage out tomorrow. I've watched a ton of games today. I'll watch some more after I jump off this stream. And so lockdown coverage in podcast form will be out at some point tomorrow. And so be on the lookout for that. I've released a new podcast. So that came out on Saturday. Check it out as well. A lot going on the Louie T Network. So stay tuned for more updates. But I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Remember, we're changing the game over here. 1 live feed at a time. And if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Keep checking in on the Louie T Network. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Joe, take us home.
Louie T Network.